Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Monday, it's August 14th. It is 2023. We have 8 baseball games to talk about here on today's podcast. Joined today by my buddy Keith Eys819. Keith, hey, nice little 8-game slate. Nice little change of pace for you.
Yeah, we're on those 14 and 15ers sometimes there that we get on Tuesdays and Fridays a lot, but 8 games should be a breeze. Love this slate size. There's plenty of decisions to be made, but not enough where it's like overwhelming. So really good spot. It's a Coors slate too, so that's going to add an interesting game theory dynamic to the slate. There's some cheap pitching that we're going to talk about. There's some aces to talk about. So a little bit of everything on this 8-gamer.
I will say I had a very long day yesterday with NASCAR content, and I had XM twice today. I have not looked at, this is like a true first look for me today on the podcast. So I'll give like my final thoughts on like pitching when we get done. But like the 5 minutes I spent looking at it, and I was like, all right, a lot of interesting decisions to make. So
For sure.
um, Pete says Eyes does not look like Will. Everybody's so used to Will being on Mondays, but Will
Right.
will be on tomorrow. Him and Keith switched. You know, he asked Keith to switch, and Keith was like, yeah, baby. He saw those 8 games instead of 13, and he jumped on there as fast as he could. So
Mondays are really heavy content for me anyway. So then having to do content all day long, record the morning grind at night, it gets to be a very long day. So I was happy to cut my day a little bit shorter tomorrow, take on the podcast tonight.
There you go. I'm on the 6-pack tomorrow. So if you enjoy beer 6-pack, it's Stevie's 6-pack tomorrow. So I mean, let's jump in. Let's have some fun. We got 8 games. What's up, YouTube? Hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday night over there on YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page. We're 5 subscribers away from 700. The goal is to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. We got football coming up. We will have a special football podcast like we did last year, where we'll have 6 episodes a week, 5 for regular baseball or basketball when that comes around, and then we'll have a special football episode each and every week as well. So let's jump in, have some fun. We start with Pittsburgh at New York. We got Mets, not the Yankees. Carrasco and Priester facing off against each other. No total in this game. They're probably trying to figure out how high they need to make it. Any interest here in Quinn Priester?
I can't do it. There's cheap pitching options on this slate. Priester is a solid enough prospect, but it just doesn't look like the guy's quite ready. Strikeout rate is 17.5%. Walks have been way too many. Good ballpark to pitch in, but if there weren't any other pitching options, maybe we could talk about these guys, but there are cheap pitching options here. I don't think we need to go there.
Yeah, I saw Priester. I was like, all right, Mets are not the greatest team, but I think we're going to find better options overall. Low strikeout rate, just not a guy that is going to go out and dominate an offense most of the time. So no interest for me in Priester. Any interest in Carrasco on the other side of this game?
It looks like he's starting to pitch a little bit better. He was fine his last time out against the Cubs, had been getting hit around a ton before that. Pittsburgh's not the most intimidating matchup. Like I said, on a different slate, I might have some interest. If you want to take a shot that he can repeat the success he just had against the Cubs, I don't hate the idea. I don't think he makes my pool just because I quite like a couple of the other cheapies, but he's formerly a pretty decent pitcher. He's just been struggling quite a bit here recently outside of his last start.
Yeah, and I mean, just thinking about this lineup, they called up a bunch of guys, but a lot of them are left-handed. That Cubs game, he ran on the really good side of BABIP. It was like 180, if I remember correctly. So stacked the Cubs that day, dug in a little bit the next day on why it didn't work. But yeah, I don't really have any interest in Carrasco. Let's talk Pittsburgh bats. Looking at this lineup, I mean, there's some power in this lineup. Obviously, Swazinski is someone that we've targeted a lot this season. Reynolds has some pop. Rivas has some pop at the top of this order. He's a big strikeout guy, so he kind of benefits for a matchup against Carrasco, who strikes out lefties at a smaller clip. And If he hits leadoff here, he is 2,300 first baseman with some power. So I could see maybe a mini stack. I don't see myself getting to a full Pittsburgh stack because this game is in Citi Field. What are your thoughts on the Mets?
Yeah, exactly what you said at the end there. It's a mini stack for me. They're really cheap. Outside of Reynolds at 4,300, nobody's over 4K. Several 2K options. But it's the upside that I struggle to see, even in a pretty good matchup here against Carrasco. It's a tough park for home runs. These guys don't have a ton of power in the lineup. I love the Sawinski call. I think he's an elite value option on this slate. Rivas has some power as well, so don't mind that. But it's a 3-man stack for me. You can play some Reynolds and some McCutchen in there. Hayes has been a little bit better here recently, so they're all cheap. I think if you're looking for a cheap 3-man stack, Pittsburgh fits that mold.
Other side of this game, the Mets. I mean, Priester does give up 57% hard contact to right-handed hitters. Obviously, when you're looking at the Mets lineup, Pete Alonso is always at the top of the list as far as targeting a one-off home run. I don't mind maybe a Lindor or Nimmo, but it's same conversation. This game is in Citi Field. The pitching is not great. There's going to be plenty of bats on balls in this game. Just overall, I mean, yeah, I have some slight interest in maybe a mini stack here for the Mets. I was trying to. DJ Stewart is 2,500. He can hit it out of any ballpark. He can also strike out with the best of them. So he's someone that I would target in this matchup with Priester having a lower strikeout rate. What are your thoughts when it comes to the Mets?
I would say I have a little bit more interest than you do. And just because I don't think Priester is quite ready to be a major league pitcher. He's just up there. Pittsburgh is trying to get a look at him to see what they have going into next year, really. Alonso's one of the top hitters on the slate for me. I love Lindor. I love Alvarez at catcher. Nimmo is dealing with this nagging injury that has me a little bit concerned about him. But the lineup falls off really quickly after that. So I understand why it's only a 3-man for you. Like the Alonso, Lindor, Alvarez combination, I absolutely love. There's not a lot to like outside of that. Jeff McNeil's an on-base guy. Could pick up a couple of hits. Don't mind him in a stack. Vogelbach is really cheap with some power. I like the DJ Stewart call. I'll probably have a couple full stacks of Mets, but the lineup does fall off really quickly. Alonso and Lindor are absolute elite options on the slate, though.
All right, we got Yankees and Braves, 9 total in this game. Braves a 220 favorite. Max Fried going up against Clark Schmidt. Any interest here in Schmidt against Atlanta?
I can't pay 7,700 for a pitcher against Atlanta. Schmidt's been above average with the strikeouts, or right around league average, actually. But Atlanta is just so good. There's so much power in this lineup. They haven't been striking out. 7,700, a little bit too much for this spot.
Where's the weak spot?
In the lineup, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like there's no weak spot. The weakest hitter in this lineup is probably Orlando Arcia, and he has a 330 WOBA this season against righties. Like, there's no weak spot in this lineup. It's such a tough team to face. You said average type strikeout pitcher. I don't really have a ton of interest in Clark Schmidt. And honestly, if we look at his more recent numbers, his strikeout rate's kind of dipped here. So, I mean, that's always concerning. The amount of hard contact he gives up to lefties is super concerning here. So, other side of this one, Max Fried, 9,400, 72 and 79 pitches in his first 2 starts back after missing almost 3 months. Any interest in Fried at 9,400 against the Yankees?
Going to be ownership dependent here, and I think he's going to come in low owned. Max Scherzer on the slate, I think, is the guy most people are spending up for. We'll talk about Glasnow. I'm not really sure what to expect there. Fried's in the conversation for sure. He's a little bit cheaper than both of those guys. I'm not necessarily scared of this Yankees offense. Fried had one really good start against the Cubs, was really disappointing his last time out against Pittsburgh. That pitch count is a concern. So if we weren't getting a slight discount off of Max Scherzer and Glasnow, I would say probably just skip him on this because he just doesn't have the same upside as those guys from a strikeout perspective or a leash perspective. Down to 9,400, I think you can take some shots here. He's an elite pitcher when he's right. I'm just a little bit concerned about the upside because of the leash. But if I knew I could get 90 pitches here, I have quite a bit of interest.
My biggest thing is they don't have a reason to throw him 90 pitches. Like, that is my concern. I mean, they're very, very safe where they're at playoff wise, and they need this guy for the playoffs. Like, their goal with Max Fried is to have him ready for the playoffs. I mean, they're 4 games up on the Dodgers as far as like overall National League record. They're 10 games up on the Phillies as far as like the NL East. They're sitting in a fantastic spot. They have one of the best, if not the best, offense in baseball. They need Fried healthy for the playoffs. So, like, this might be another like 6 to 10 pitch increase. I don't think it's like 95 coming here. I don't see him going 95 in this game. I will be shocked if he goes over 85, to be honest. So he got a little unlucky in the Pirates game. He generated ground balls. His BABIP was a little unlucky in that game. He, at 85 pitches at 9,400, he's not the guy I want on this slate. Like, the Yankees strike out less against left-handed pitching. They're actually really good against left-handed pitching overall. I think they're 7th in WRC plus. So while I might not stack the Yankees in this game, I don't think this is a spot I want to play Fried, even at low ownership. So I worry about his ceiling. I think I'd rather like take a shot on like a Darvish, or something along those lines. So I don't know if I get to Fried today. As of right now, I'm not feeling like I'm going to get to Fried today. Yankees bats. Any interest in the Yankees bats against Fried?
I mean, you can hunt home runs, but Fried is very good at generating ground balls. His strikeout rate has been really solid this season. Definitely not a full stack. He's always been an elite control guy, always been able to generate those ground balls. So it's just hunting home runs, and there's not a ton of options to love. You got to pay way up for Judge, which I'm of course fine doing. Stanton, just 4,600. It like seems like a nice price, but he's had a rough season. Still all kinds of power there. So if you want to take a shot on a Stanton homer, I'm fine with that. Bader at 3,300, pretty good against lefties. Torres is 4,400. It's just going to be home run one-offs. I think I wouldn't even make it a mini stack.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their numbers against lefties this year, obviously Judge needs to be at the top of the list. Stanton needs to be at the top of the list. Bader needs to be at the top of the list. Like, those are the guys that you're going to home run chase with in this matchup. Bader, 57 plate appearances, 420 ISO, 500 WOBA against left-handed pitching this season. He's going to make hard contact. The problem is you're facing a ground ball guy. Judge is a fly ball hitter, so he benefits maybe here from facing a ground ball guy. Atlanta side, as far as the bats go, I mean, they're expensive. Like, it's just, I love it. I love the fact that they're not free, and it's really hard to make an Atlanta stack work because, I mean, I feel like have they been a little bit cheaper this year, they would have won so many more slates. But what are your thoughts here on the Braves bats?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good spot for them. They're back in Atlanta where they have just absolutely raked this year. I think one of the first things I do on every slate is there a comfortable way to fit in like a premium Atlanta stack? And I'm not saying you need to play all 4 of the 6K guys, but at least 3 of them. And Derek makes a note in the chat that Albies left the game early. So if he's out, maybe we get a couple more value options. But just the dynamics of this slate, as I was going through it, I think there are plenty of cheap pitching options where you're going to be able to fit in an Atlanta stack that contains at least 3 of Acuna, Olsen, Riley, and Albies. And for that reason, they have the highest upside on the slate, even counting Coors in that conversation. Like, this offense is just so good, and there's so much power throughout the lineup that, like, if they're on the slate, we need to be finding a way to stack them.
Yeah, man. Matt Olson, just we saw it. Yeah, I mean, we saw it in like spring training, like his power surge and the launch angle and all that stuff. We saw it in spring training. We're like, is he going to be able to keep it up? I said it so many times last year that I thought what Freeman wanted, it was good to let him go, and I thought Olsen was a fantastic bargain. And man, he's making me look smart. Does he get to 60?
I don't know if he gets to 60. It'll be fun. Like, I think Shohei is like really going to make a run at 60 just because I think there'll be all kinds of hype. And to have that second guy with him chasing should be really fun coming down the stretch. I would bet against it if I had to make a wager right now, but it should be fun to see it play out throughout the season.
116 games in, right? I think is what I read earlier. So he has 46 more? Yeah, 46 more. 18 home runs. I mean, it'd be fun.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. Too bad this game wasn't in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, right.
All right, moving on. We got Oakland at St. Louis. This game has a 9 total. The Cardinals a 210 favorite. Sears and Nicolas facing off against each other. Any interest here in JP Sears?
I don't love throwing left-handed or using left-handed pitchers against St. Louis. They line up pretty well against lefties. Sears has had a good enough season. He gets the big ballpark downgrade going into St. Louis, facing a tough offense. I don't think it's the slate, kind of similar to the Carrasco conversation. There are other options I prefer. If you had some conviction on Sears, I don't think it's crazy, though.
A lot of hard contact to righties. He does strike out righties at a higher clip than he does lefties. So, I mean, that's always interesting. He gives up so many fly balls.
Yeah.
So many fly balls. And I mean, the weather has been pretty toasty in St. Louis here, and it's been good hitting conditions. So it looks like it's going to be high 70s, wind blowing out tomorrow. I don't see myself getting to Sears. I don't think it's crazy. But St. Louis just lines up so good against left-handed pitching. Miles Mikolas on the other side of this game, 7K. I think he's a potential cheap option that we could look at here. Oakland, not one of those offenses that you're necessarily scared of. A lot of strikeouts in this lineup. They've been a little bit better. They've called some guys up. I know they called Lawrence Butler up. Any interest here in Miles Mikolas?
I don't think I have rostered Miles Mikolas all season long, but this is a spot that you have to be pretty interested in. It will depend on ownership for me. If he's picking up ownership because of this matchup against Oakland, I think it's going to be a pretty easy underweight stance for me. But if I'm looking, like Emerson Hancock is still 4K for some reason, he's going to be pretty popular on this slate, I think. If I'm looking for pivots, like if I'm trying to play a 7K guy and a 6K guy instead of 4K Hancock and a 10K guy, Michaelis might make my pool. But it's going to be ownership dependent. He's been pretty good his last 2 times out. A great strikeout matchup here against Oakland. He's in play for sure, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on the ownership.
All right, let's talk bats. Oakland bats. I just mentioned him, right? Lawrence Butler. He's going to be one of my favorite value plays on this slate on teams that I'm not playing Mikolas. Like he's minimum salary here. You know, this is a big time power guy. He grades out as a big time power guy. I know coming into the season he was top 100 prospect. I know I thought I remember reading at the beginning of the year this wasn't a guy that was supposed to get called up this year, but I mean, if you're Oakland, what's the downgrade? He's like 3rd or 4th in the organization overall. Like big power. I think I was just pulling it up really quick. Fangraphs has him as a 60-70 power, raw power grade. So big power. This is a guy that is very capable of hitting home runs. He doesn't have a lot of quality at bats against good pitching. He started the season in Double-A, played most of last year in High-A. He is very, very raw still, but I mean, against a guy like Mikolas who doesn't really power the ball by you, Butler at 2K is definitely going to make some builds for me today.
Yeah, I don't mind a couple of these Oakland bats. Like you said, Mikolas is not a big strikeout guy, so Oakland has some success here. He depends on Babbitt to get a lot of his outs, and if the Babbitt variance goes in Oakland's direction, I could see him putting up a couple of runs here. They're really cheap. JJ Bleday at 3K is one of my favorites. Seth Brown at 3,500, totally fine. Geloff has been playing really well. His price is coming up, but you have so many value options. I don't mind putting 2 or 3 of them together, making it a little mini stack, especially if like Pittsburgh gets too popular and I'm looking for a pivot and Michaelis picks up a little bit of ownership on this slate. I definitely will have some exposure to the Oakland mini in that spot.
All right. St. Louis, obviously Goldschmidt, Arenado, these guys are fantastic against left-handed pitching. We should get like O'Neill and Contreras in the lineup as well. What are your thoughts here on the Cardinals?
Yeah, I like this spot for the Cardinals quite a bit. Sears has been good this season, but I did mention the ballpark downgrade going from Oakland into St. Louis is a worse spot for pitchers. And St. Louis just sets up so well. Goldschmidt, Arenado, O'Neill at 3,700 is an elite value option. Contreras at 3,600. I know he hasn't been great this year, but like that's too cheap for what he's been able to do in the past. Jordan Walker, a big power guy. He's only 3K. Like outside of Goldschmidt and Arenado, this team's pretty cheap as well. O'Neill and Contreras kind of jumping off the page. Even Walker, as like their upside is outstanding, and their prices are in the 3K range.
All right, we got LA Angels, that is, heading to Texas to face the Rangers. 9 total in this game. Rangers a 175 favorite. We got Sandoval facing Scherzer. Patrick Sandoval, hey, he did his thing last time out. I touted him. We talked about him against the Giants. Really played a bunch of them in that matchup, and he did his thing. Put him right back on the shelf. This is a extremely tough matchup going up against Texas. Texas is hit or miss this season against left-handed pitching, but overall, I don't typically go out of my way to pick on them. What are your thoughts on Sandoval?
Yeah, tough spot for him. He's been much better recently. You made some great points on that day you pitched last week. That matchup against San Francisco and how that lined up. I don't think this lines up near as well for him. Pretty tough spot here against Texas. Probably don't need him on the slate.
The thing that concerns me the most in this spot is the walks. There's a lot of patient hitters. Simeon's patient, Lowe is patient, Garcia's patient. The guy towards the bottom of the order is Josh Smith. He's patient. Duran's good against lefties. This is a spot where he was in a fantastic matchup last time out. It's not so much in this one, and we go back to him when we can. Scherzer on the other side of this game, 11K. Still not showing like Scherzer dominance, and we may never see like dominant Scherzer again. 11K going up against the Angels. It's not like one of those matchups that's just like, hey, this is an easy spot. He's going to go out and dominate. This is a tougher matchup. 11K, obviously, when we're looking at the slate overall. What are your thoughts here on Scherzer?
Yeah, he's the top pitcher on the slate for me. I don't love the price tag. I don't love the matchup. I don't think the Angels are like the most terrifying matchup, but there's plenty of good hitters throughout that lineup. I think there are enough strikeouts here, though. I could see Scherzer paying off 11K, and I'm not quite sure Glasnow has the leash in this spot to just absolutely like throw out a typical double-digit strikeout performance here. So Scherzer's the top guy. The matchup is not the best, and the price tag is what really has me lukewarm on him. But as far as the slate goes, top option overall for me.
See, okay, I said it at the beginning, right? I said that this is like a true first look for me. Super busy with like XM radio and stuff today, and we talk football for 2 hours. So like I really spent a lot of time on football this afternoon. Looking at this spot, like in my head, my first initial thought is Scherzer is a guy that I want to be underweight on. So I don't disagree with you as far as like, being the top option, but I like Glasnow more. I think the spot is better for Glasnow, and we'll see. We'll talk about it when we get there. But I could see even like going down and playing like 2 guys under 9K instead of paying up for these guys today. We have some good bats and good spots. So my initial reaction, like first thought, is be underweight on Scherzer. Especially like, I think a lot of people are going to play him. It's so easy just to say, hey, Max is on the mound, but I could see like a likely outcome of like scoring 22, 23 points. And I feel like I can get a discount and try to go over that or even match that with a cheaper guy. So that's just my initial thoughts. Hey, not sitting here saying, you should fade him on every single team, but it is a bump that like CJ Crone is banged up right now. That takes out one of the potential good lineups here. It was like back tightness or something. So he could potentially miss this game. They might give him a day. Angels bats. Listen, this just screams Ohtani, man. This just screams Ohtani. I know, like, 6,600 for Ohtani against Scherzer. Like, nobody is playing Ohtani today at 6,600 against Scherzer, and it just screams like a fantastic leverage spot.
Yeah, I mean, the way you can beat Scherzer is with left-handed power, and nobody has more left-handed power than Shohei Ohtani. So
Matt Olson's like, what?
well,
I'm at 42. Catch up.
Good point. But it's a great spot for an Ohtani home run. You probably need two, though, is the only problem at that price. You probably at least need 2 hits with like a hit and a home run. I don't know. It's a tough price, and I don't love spending all the way to the top for my one-offs, but I can't argue with the spot. I don't think I'm stacking Angels at all. I certainly don't mind chasing a couple other cheap guys for a home run here. Max is an extreme fly ball pitcher. He is not the strikeout pitcher from his dominant run through the league. So you can definitely hunt for home runs. Moniak is fine at 4,700. Let's see here. Renfroe at 3,500. I don't mind. Moustakas at 3,400 might be my favorite option overall.
Midyon. Texas bats here. I do like Texas against left-handed pitching. I think that, while I respect Sandoval and I think he is maybe slightly above average, his biggest issue is walks. I mean, walks can turn into runs really fast, especially against a talented lineup like Texas. I don't know if I'm like one-offing them because like the pieces I want to play are expensive, So I think if I'm playing Texas, it would be a stack, whether it be like a 4-4 or a 5-2 or 5-1, 5-3. I think I'd be looking at Texas as a stack today.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Sandoval's control, and that's part of the reason why you're not interested in this spot. I think that could lead to a lot of traffic on the bases here, and we know Texas has a bunch of power. I kind of like this spot for Texas. Spending the money is going to be tough. Like, do I want Seager, Simeon, and Garcia? Of course I want them, but can I fit them? Yeah, pretty good spot here. Like, pricing is tough, but I mean, there's still plenty of value options. Like the catchers are 3,500. Tavares, I don't mind playing at the bottom of the order, is 3,600. Grossman's in there sometime against lefties at 3K. So like there are options to make it work, but the pricing on the top guys is a little concerning, but like we know they have a ton of upside.
Yeah, I was trying to just think overall, like it's just one of those spots that it's like a stat, and like the Angels bullpen is like a bottom 10 bullpen, so it's not like it's a great bullpen either. I could see a stack working here for Texas. Seattle at Kansas City. We got a 9 total in this game. The Mariners, a 150 favorite. It sounds like it's going to be Gilbert. I know DraftKings has Hancock, but I thought I read that it was going to be Gilbert in the start. It should be Gilbert's turn in the it should be Gilbert's turn in the rotation over Hancock. Hancock pitched the day after Gilbert last week, so we'll see.
We have Hancock on the RG lineups page too. And that kind of like that dynamic changes the entire slate. If Hancock's not available here, that makes it really tough to fit Braves. Like it's just going to change everything.
It would put him on 5 days and push Gilbert back to like 7. So I don't know. I'm just saying, like I saw a couple different sites, like betting sites that had Gilbert. Gilbert, for what it's worth, is someone that they do extend to 6 days sometimes, so it would not shock me. But this is 6 days for him. Tomorrow will be 6 days, so we'll see. But I just looked. Action and Scores and Odds both have Gilbert, so we'll have to see if we can get. Let's talk about both of them, and then whoever pitches, we'll give our thoughts on both. So we'll start with Hancock. Okay,
the official MLB.com Mariners site also has Gilbert. So I'm thinking you're correct there, that it has been changed to Gilbert. And that's a big deal. Like, it changes like the entire way you build on this slate.
You're not getting a 4K pitcher against Kansas City?
Yeah, exactly.
But also, like, it goes back to the conversation. Like, if Gilbert is the guy, like, it's a lot easier to get off Scherzer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. Gilbert jumps to the top of my list on this spot. Just he's a really good pitcher. He's got around the 25% strikeout rate. Like, I didn't research him at all. This is off the top of my head. Elite walk rate. And he gets Kansas City, which is one of the best matchups in baseball. Like, they strike out a ton. 9,700. He's coming off a 12 strikeout performance against San Diego. Yeah, I mean, Gilbert is probably the top option on the slate, and that definitely decreases my interest in both Max Scherzer and Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah, I mean, and then, okay, flipping the switch here, we both agree if Gilbert's the guy, he's in a fantastic spot. Fantastic spot. If it's Hancock, he's 4K. Yeah, he's a young, talented prospect, but he's 4K. I mean, I made an argument for him the other day when he was facing San Diego at 4K. I'm going to definitely make an argument for him facing, Kansas City at 4K. So if Hancock's in there, I think like the Hancock Scherzer build is like your popular build today. What are your thoughts on Hancock if it is him?
Yeah, I mean, 4K is just too cheap. He threw 87 pitches in his debut. He's not an elite prospect, but he's a solid enough prospect. In this matchup, I'm extremely interested. I played plenty of them against San Diego as well. So
4K pitchers, man, it just
opens, especially when you're getting a full leash out of him. Like, he's going 80 plus pitches in this spot. Even if he gets beat up a little bit, they're going to leave him out there until he gets his 80 pitches or whatever. So, like, this is not like a long reliever bulk guy that we're talking about. It's a fully stretched out starter, and it's one of the best matchups that we can ask for.
I want to talk about Singer on the other side of this game too.
Me too.
A guy that has, I mean, he's looked really good, and I don't want to jinx him, but he's looked really good. I mean, this is a spot where you have a high strikeout Seattle lineup with a ton of power. There's plenty of power at the top half of this lineup. I could see Brady Singer being very useful in this game. Like, he's thrown over 90 pitches in I think like 7 or 8, 9, 10 straight games, something like that. Just he's been good. Like, what are your thoughts here when it comes to Brady Singer?
Brady Singer might be my favorite pitcher on the entire slate. If we get 4K Hancock, that's probably like my highest exposure, but Singer's going to be right there. And if there's no Hancock available, I probably, like I said, my roster construction changes and I don't even go to the 11K range as much. And Singer will definitely be my highest owned pitcher. Like you said, he's been really good here recently. K rate for the season, only 19.4%. But and he's had 2 really low strikeout opponents his last time out. He's only got 4 strikeouts against Boston and 4 strikeouts against the Mets. But it seemed to me like he was starting to turn a corner with the strikeouts before that. He had 10 against Minnesota, obviously a fantastic strikeout matchup, and 9 against the Yankees. So I think there's pretty solid strikeout upside here against. I could see double digits not out of the question. 7,900 for a guy that I think has a shot at double digit strikeouts is just way too cheap.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Minnesota. They're the highest strikeout team in baseball against right-handed pitching. Well, Seattle's second highest. So, like, you look at the Mets and the Red Sox the last 2 times out. They're both, I think they're like 25th and 26th in strikeouts against right-handed pitching. So, like, he went from like 2 really like elite strikeout matchups to like 2 really tough strikeout matchups, and still pitched. I mean, I'll take 17 points. Just give them to me right now. So I'd be super happy with that. I'd be super happy with like 25 plus. But I think Singer is very much in play today. Going to the Seattle Bats. I mean, outside of Julio Rodriguez, I think everyone else in this lineup is under 4,500. Do you have any interest here in Seattle?
Not a ton. I think I'm just going to end up playing so much Singer that I probably don't get to Seattle. He's just been in such good form here. It's a good ballpark. It's probably going to be hot, but that's all right. I like Singer's form. I'm going to play the Singer side of this matchup a lot more than I'm going to play Seattle.
For what it's worth, at bat has Gilbert as well. So I'm not playing Kansas City either way. If it's Hancock, I might be more interested in maybe taking some shots on like Salvador Perez at 4,400 or maybe some of these left-handed guys against the young rookie. But against Gilbert, I have no interest whatsoever when it comes to Kansas City.
Yeah, similar to how I feel. Like, you can take shots if it's Hancock. If it's Gilbert, no interest for me either. Just he's an above average major league pitcher, has an elite walk rate, keeps the ball on the ground enough. And Kansas City is just bad. You can certainly play Bobby Witt in any matchup, but he's expensive. Sal Perez has had a very down season. Like, I'm probably not getting to much of Kansas City either way, but it'll be 0 if it's Gilbert.
All right, let's talk Coors. Arizona at Colorado. No total in this game. Sounds like Kelly is going to be good to go. He had like a cramp last time out. He was at like 83 pitches, and it's really hot. Let's just be honest. So, I mean, cramping right now, if you don't hydrate, you're going to cramp. And then Flexen pitching for Colorado. All right, let's talk Kelly. They intrigued us, right? They made him 8,100. I know that it is Coors. Don't get me wrong. Colorado's the worst offense in baseball. I mean, I think you can make a serious argument for Kelly at 8,100 against Colorado, even in Coors.
I completely agree with you, and I think this is even more like, even when I thought Hancock was on the slate, I was going to come on here and say you can definitely play Merrill Kelly. If they take Hancock off and I'm looking for a mid-range pitcher, I'm very interested in Kelly. Like, Singer's going to be in my pool. He's going to be my highest owned. But Merrill Kelly is a phenomenal pivot in this spot. He's an above-average pitcher. His strikeouts are up to 25%. Walk rates are at 9, which is, like, that's fine. Coors Field is the only thing we're concerned about, because it's certainly not the Rockies bats that we're terrified of. Like, it is, like, since the trades, it was already one of the worst offenses in baseball, and then they traded away 2 of their best hitters. Like, it's definitively the worst offense in baseball now. The only reason to even think about not playing Kelly is because of Coors Field. I'm willing to roll the dice on it against this offense.
I think my biggest concern for Kelly, and it's kind of baked into the price, my biggest concern for Kelly is, like, he throws a lot of, like, that cut sinker, like it's a vertically down pitch that, you know, he generates his ground balls and stuff with, and that's not going to generate as much forward, I mean, spin downwards.
Like just the movement's going to be less. Like the break is going to be less than he's used to seeing.
So, like, I mean, it's just, all right, throw more fastballs. I mean, this lineup's just not good. So there's just so many strikeouts in this lineup. And I mean, when the best hitter in the lineup is like Nolan Jones, you're like, this lineup's probably pretty beatable. Even though I can't hate on my boy Nolan Jones. That guy's good. He's a guy that I'm like, man, you wish you were in a different spot. But hey, we're not playing Chris Flexen. Nope.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Arizona's the top stack on the slate today. I hate stacking Coors sometimes, but, like, there's no doubt about it. It's not even close for me today. Like, I know I love Atlanta and they're in a fantastic spot, but it's not even remotely close for me today. Arizona, by far, top stack on the slate. The Rockies bullpen, bottom 5 bullpen, like, everything just lines up for Arizona. If this game was in Arizona, they would still be the top stack on the slate for me.
That's an awesome point that you just made right there. And I've heard Cheese talk about that too. Like take the Coors Field context out of it. Would we want to stack against Chris Flexen if he was pitching in a different park? And the answer is absolutely yes. He's one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball. He should not be a major league pitcher at this point. Strikeouts under 15%, walks over 10%, and we're in Coors Field. So agree with you. Arizona absolutely top stack on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, so I was so curious the other day, right? I was like, man, why do the Rockies have some of these guys still starting? They have so many talented prospects, but they're all just really, really young. Like, they're just not even close to being ready, like major league ready. They're like in high A ball and stuff. Like, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, a lot of their prospects, like, they're like the definition of rebuilding. I was looking through their prospect list, and it's like 2025, 2026 for, like, I think it's like 17 of the 20 of their top prospects. So they're in like full rebuild mode. They don't really have anybody they need to call up and, like, get them looks. Like, so I was like, I had to look because I was so curious. I was like, why are you not calling, like, even some hitters up? Like, they don't even have any hitters that are like major league, even close to being ready. So it's really interesting when it comes to Colorado.
How bad was the Chris Bryant signing for them? Like, regardless that Chris Bryant's barely been on the field for them, it just made no sense with where they were at in that rebuild. Like, why go spend whatever million you did on a free agent at this point in your rebuild? Like, it made absolutely no sense. They should have been looking to like deal McMahon, deal Blackmon, anyone they could get a useful prospect back for. They should have just went full on punt.
And no one's taken Chris Bryant's contract.
No, not at this point.
So, do you have any interest in the Rockies bets?
I mean, I think they're going to be far lower owned than Arizona, and it's going to be the same thing you hear from everybody is like, this is just a bad offense, but it's still Coors Field. It's a bad offense against a good pitcher. I don't think they're going to be that owned, and because of that, I have some slight interest. Like Nolan Jones is clearly the top option. Ryan McMahon's right there with him. Outside of that, it's a pretty uncomfortable click for anybody in the lineup. I mean, Toglia's got a little power. Montero's got some power, but massive strikeouts. Doyle, I guess you could play for some speed if you want to use the bottom of the order. Tovar's decent enough, but he's not free either. He's 4,300. It's going to be ownership dependent, but if they're coming in low owned, I probably have some slight interest.
I mean, Rogers is still really cheap. I know he really hasn't been great at the plate this year, but I mean, the ownership aspect of it and the value that you're going to get, like, you know, depending on like who cracks the lineup for Colorado, they might be a value stack. So
yeah,
we'll see. Baltimore, San Diego. I thought it was interesting. There's no total for any of these last 3 games, and I know the Giants situation with this like opener thing, and I'm so over it by now. It reminds me so much of like Tampa from a couple years ago, where just every day you open up the slate and you're like, every day there's an opener, and it's like Giants, hey, you're 63 and 55. Why are you doing this? But I guess it's working, so I guess can't really argue. But anyway, Baltimore at San Diego, Rodriguez and Darvish. Any interest here in Rodriguez going up against San Diego?
So I had slight interest even when Hancock was on the slate, just because I think you could try to talk yourself into Hancock getting blown up and Rodriguez being the most useful cheap pitcher. Now that we don't have Hancock, I'm even more interested. Obviously, it's a tough matchup against San Diego, but Grayson Rodriguez is a very talented arm. He's starting to figure it out a little bit. The leash has been phenomenal. He's been over 90 pitches, like ever since he's been recalled. The strikeouts have ticked up a little bit. He's 24.7% on the season, and it's been even better than that since being sent down and then called back up. So yeah, I just think he's more talented than a $6,400 pitcher. I don't love the matchup, but he's the cheap guy I'll be going with if we don't get Hancock.
My biggest concern with him is ever since he got kind of recalled, like his ground ball rate is just wildly high. Can he continue to sustain this massive ground ball rate? Like is my biggest concern. I was looking through some of the data for him, and like a lot of his X stats concern me a little bit. But I mean, X stats, like when you're looking at like X WOBA, X ERA, all that kind of stuff, like are generally higher when it comes to, you know, young pitchers. So I mean, he's using the cutter a lot. Did he go back down to the minors because the cutter wasn't like performing like he wanted it to in the majors? But I mean, the spin is definitely higher. He doesn't generate whiffs with that. He really uses it to kind of, you know, generate ground balls. But yeah, I mean, he has a strikeout pitch. Like his slider is a legit 35% whiff rate pitch. It's a really good pitch. So definitely some slight interest. I don't know if I get to him in like a 3-entry max build, but he is there definitely on the like list today. You Darvish 8,700. I mean, Baltimore has been a really solid offense this year. Very underrated. They don't walk. They do strike out a little bit, but I mean, up and down, top to bottom, they got power. They got on base guys. I think if Gilbert is the pitcher today, I have less interest in Darvish overall. If it's not Gilbert, I think that, you know, Glasnow and Darvish become like pivots off of Scherzer a little bit. What are your thoughts here on Darvish?
Yeah, lukewarm interest at best. And I'll play the ownership game with him a little bit. If he's a lot lower owned than, say, Scherzer or Gilbert, then maybe I take some tournament shots. But he's not the elite strikeout pitcher that he was. Just kind of, he's closer to an average pitcher than he has been in a long time. He's no longer an elite option, but the price isn't elite either. So, like, I would rather save the 800 and go down to Singer. I'd rather spend a little bit more and get up to Gilbert or Max Scherzer. But he's in play. He's a talented enough pitcher. I don't love the matchup, but just because of the price, I think he's very much in play. It's going to be an ownership decision for me.
Bats. Any interest in Baltimore bats here?
Darvish is good enough. I'm not looking to stack against him, really. You can certainly hunt home runs off of him. He's a fly ball pitcher. They're pricey. I do like Mullins' price at 4,300. Henderson and Rutschman are certainly fine around 5K. I don't think it's a stack for me. I'm probably just looking for home runs. Tough ballpark for homers out there in San Diego too. So probably not a ton of exposure to Baltimore for me.
It'd be like Santander, Henderson, O'Hearn, like trying to get a home run, like Rutschman, like one of those like top 4 guys, and just, hey, I built a lineup I really liked, and I ended up with like 5K at shortstop and plug in Henderson in that lineup. Like that type of build for me. I'm not seeking to stack against Darvish. I'm with you. San Diego side of this game, I mean, I want to do a little bit more digging on like this massive ground ball rate out of nowhere kind of thing for Rodriguez, but I mean, it's not like San Diego's cheap. So if he is going to generate a lot of ground balls and not get blown up, it's really tough to pay these prices. I mean, he has not allowed a home run since he's come back up. Like, he's pitched against the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Astros. He's not allowed a home run since he got called back up. So this might be one of those spots where like projections are projecting like a full season for Rodriguez, and like there's some value potentially on the San Diego bats. But I mean, if he's kind of, honed in on a cutter and he's generating a ton of ground balls, this might just be one of those spots where you play the recent data and just go underweight or even fade the San Diego bats here.
Yeah, you've piqued my interest with the ground ball rate spike, because, I mean, they obviously called him up and it wasn't working. So they sent him back down. And generally in those situations, you're going down to work on some specific things. And if generating ground balls is how they think he's going to make that jump to being major league ready, then that makes a lot of sense. So I definitely want to dig into that a little bit too. Like, San Diego's still in play, but like they're going to be way down the list for me, I think. If Rodriguez picks up some ownership, I'll have more interest. But like I said, I believe in the talent. I probably want to play the Rodriguez side of this in the majority of my build.
Yeah, so 13 home runs allowed in April and May, and 5 games since he came back, and he hasn't. So I didn't jinx him. How do I jinx him? I'm just saying, like, I said I didn't think the ground ball rate was real. I said I wanted to look into it more. I'm just pointing out the fact that he hasn't allowed a home run in 5 games since coming back, and he allowed 13 home runs in 10 games when he was up in April and May, multiple home run games. So, yeah, when you usually get sent back down, there's usually a reason. And like, he was giving up home runs on everything. He gave up home runs on fastballs, changeups, cutters, curveballs. The only thing he hasn't given up a home run on is his slider, and his slider is his best pitch, so that makes a ton of sense. So, yeah, just overall, man, I want to do. I'm definitely going to spend some time on Rodriguez because at these prices, I mean, if I feel really confident in fading this team, then it's definitely going to open up, potential for paying up elsewhere. So going to be doing a little bit of deeper dive on Rodriguez. And usually I'm on Grinders Live on Mondays, but I'm on Grinders Live Tuesday and Wednesday this week. So yeah, I'm saying he's due. I'm not saying he's due. I'm saying I want to know more.
Like, this is one of the best pitching prospects in baseball coming into the season. There's a guy who has like a 30% K rate throughout the minors. Like, he should not be 6,400. Like, it's a tough matchup against San Diego. But when they start finding success, we definitely want to be early on these types of guys, because he could be on his way to being like an elite option here.
Oh man, I love YouTube chat. It's so much fun. You love my shirt? Yeah, it's on like Donkey Kong. You're making it on like Donkey Kong. So, I will say, so Keith, because we've been talking about it so much, I just kind of digging and just, looking first glance at like what he's doing differently. He's using his fastball a little bit more. He was in that like 40 to 43% range in April and May. He has ticked up over like 50 to like 52, 53, 54%. So using his fastball a lot more, and which makes sense. The dude has a 98 mile an hour plus fastball. His velocity was way down in April and May. So he was averaging on his fastball 94 to 96 miles an hour. In his last 5 starts, he hasn't been under an average of 98, but only one time. So velocity matters a lot. So, I mean, the more I look at this, the more I kind of like Rodriguez. When you can find why, and like it has nothing to do with the cutter. His cutter was getting smashed in April and May, and he has thrown it not more than 5% in any of the 5 games since getting recalled. So, I mean, just looking through this is what I do in the mornings. When there's something I write down, and when we do the morning grind, I'll go back and I'll look at it. This is what I do if anybody's ever curious. So, yeah, I'm gonna be looking at everything for Rodriguez tomorrow. If he comes in at like 4.5 strikeout prop, if he comes in at like 15.5 outs, like this might be just one of those spots that I'm on Rodriguez. So when there's data backing like what you're seeing in the numbers, it makes so much sense. So I'm gonna say the biggest thing for him between April and May and where he's at now, averaging almost 2 or 3 mile an hour more on his fastball, is huge.
That is huge, yeah. And that's making the cutter play up too, because hitters have to decide that much faster. That's why velocity matters so much. Like you have to make that decision. If you're swinging at a pitch you think is a fastball and it's actually a cutter, you're going to beat that ball into the ground. That's why cutters are so.
That's why his changeup is so good, though. Like his changeup is so good because his changeup is like 13, 14 miles an hour, and it's the same arm angle as he throws his fastball.
Yeah.
His changeup has always been one of his highest graded pitches. So, yeah, I mean, here we are, Rodriguez. There you go. Deep dive on Rodriguez, something I definitely didn't plan on doing today, but I hope the Padres get some love today. Like I said, if they project on like a full season on Rodriguez, they might get some projection love today, more than like just looking at like recent data. So, for what it's worth, in April and May, I probably would have stacked the Padres, but.
Right.
All right, Tampa Bay at San Francisco. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I enjoyed it with chat. It was fun. Rodriguez is definitely getting blown up.
Isn't it the worst when you think you have something and like there's legitimate data to back it up, and so you invest heavily in it, and then it just does not work?
Yeah,
because sample sizes. It happens from time to time, but it's worth taking a shot on. Any edge that we can find, it's definitely worth playing.
Baseball variance is massive, and everyone's looking at the same stuff on like surface numbers. And like if you see something and you're like, oh, that just doesn't seem right. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you can use Plate IQ, obviously, but you can, go and do like a deep dive on FanGraphs. You just pull up the pitcher's name. So type in the pitcher, and then you go to like game log and pitch type and pitch value, and you can see like how much percentage where his fastball's at. And then you can go to Baseball Savant and do even more of a deep dive on like spin rates and whiff rates and all that stuff. So, I mean, for what it's worth, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. And I mean, I pitched for so long that like, I'm going to tell you right now, if something's clicking for you, it's good. But if you're throwing 3 or 4 miles an hour faster, you're way more confident in throwing a fastball by somebody. All right, Tampa Bay, San Francisco. Last game here. We have Glasnow against Manaea on the long relief side of things. Walker, it sounds like he's going to kind of open here. Manaea should probably throw like 3 or 4 innings. Walker throws maybe 1, possibly 2 innings here. He hasn't thrown in like 4 or 5 days, so we might see more of like 2 innings from Walker than 1. Glasnow, man. He's 10-8. He has top 90 pitches now in 4 straight games. The strikeout stuff looks fantastic. The Giants aren't like the biggest like strikeout team in baseball or anything like that. They're a very mediocre team. They do strike out quite a bit. So I think Glasnow, like I said, I like Glasnow more than I like Scherzer if I'm comparing these two. But if we're gonna add in Logan Gilbert, and he's going to be on the slate. Definitely like Logan Gilbert more than both of these guys, but I'll probably make one or two lineups with like Gilbert and Glasnow together, and just fade those cheap guys.
So I'm concerned about the pitch count here. He skipped a start because of back spasms, I think it was. So he hasn't pitched in 2 weeks now.
I totally didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so
and
I don't know that we're getting
session
90.
was only 15 pitches.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the pitch count here.
This is why we do the show. This is that. I told you it was a first look podcast for me. Dang. Hey, listen, this is why we do the show. Keith just dropping knowledge on us. Excellent point. 2 weeks, only a 15 pitch bullpen session. That was Friday. Like, I'd be shocked if he throws more than 75 pitches here.
So I think that was more like his between start bullpen. He probably threw a much longer bullpen a couple of days before that, because he was originally scheduled to start on Friday, and then ended up getting scratched. So I think that was more like side work than his actual, like, okay, this is my bullpen in place of my start. I'm assuming that he did that 2 or 3 days before the 15 pitch bullpen. The 15 pitch bullpen was just to kind of keep him loose and stretched out going into this. So like 80 pitches wouldn't surprise me, but I'm pretty sure we're not getting 90 here is the only point.
They pushed him back a couple times. Like, yeah, this wasn't.
It's concerning for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, first start of the season for Glasnow was in May. He threw 83 pitches his first start. He was very ramped up, and they brought him back. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Man, I want Logan Gilbert to be on this slate even more now.
Yeah.
If Gilbert's on this slate, I'm so much more likely to go under Scherzer to Gilbert, and then maybe take Singer or some of these other guys that we talked about. But definitely a lot more concerned about Glasnow now. Thanks, Keith. Now he's going to strike out 10, and I'm going to send you a text like, what the heck?
I mean, it's a great spot. Like, great pitcher's park,
yeah.
High strikeout offense. Like, it's an absolute great spot for him. He could absolutely throw out one of those 5-inning, 10 strikeout performances. It would not shock me. So I'm interested either way. You have to be paying attention to what's going on with pitch count and things. Obviously, we project those in lineup HQ, and we'll do research all throughout the day and make sure we get it as accurate as we can. But definitely something to note.
So for what it's worth, here, like, if you have TweetDeck, this is one of those, you make a column and just search Glasnow pitch count, and you just hope you get something. Hope you get something. I'm not touching the San Francisco situation. I don't think I'd play Manaea if he was even starting in this game. No interest for me in the opener long relief situation for San Fran.
So Manaea's been striking out a ton of people, and I know you were doing a lot of NASCAR stuff today and football stuff. I don't know if you were paying attention to Twitter at all. I'm not sure we get Wander Franco in this spot.
Crazy story.
Yeah. So
I want it to be fake so bad.
Yeah, me too. Just that, like, yeah. Anyway, possible Wander Franco's not in this lineup. Manaea's been striking out a ton of guys. There's risk here because we don't know how long he's pitching, but I think there's upside as well. If we don't get Hancock, maybe I take a look at Manaea. If Hancock's on the slate, I don't need him, and I probably just play Hancock. But I definitely prefer Grayson Rodriguez. Manaea is not a terrible option if we get a watered down Tampa Bay lineup, though.
Yeah, we'll kind of. I mean, even if Franco is not in the lineup, I think the lineup is good enough. And like Manaea, I mean, he's at like 60 pitches. Like, he's cheap. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you can get 5, 6, 7 strikeouts out of him, he doesn't get blown up, it definitely could work out. I don't think I do it. I hate these long relief situations where they're so uncertain on like what you're going to get too. Like,
yeah,
there's been plenty of times this season where Manaea has gone out and he's thrown 40 or 50 pitches. And I think he's coming back from like being banged up, and had him out of the rotation a little bit. And like, I think 60 pitches last time out was more of like a ceiling. I was striking out a bunch of people type spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what you're playing for. And there's certainly risk that he goes out there and throws 2 innings and he's done. Like when we're playing the Boston
Francisco
situation, you play Pavetta and Chris Murphy ends up coming in. Like long relievers are never comfortable plays, but large field tournament, I don't think it's crazy. Like exactly what he did against the Angels is what you're hoping for. Like 60 pitches, 6 strikeouts, 18 points at 5,600 would be pretty useful. But it's a long shot for sure.
All right. Bats, any interest in the Tampa Bats here?
I hate, like, again, it's a bullpen game. It's never comfortable trying to figure out the matchups and things like that. Like you can certainly play some guys, but like as much as Tampa pinch hits too and platoons, I really feel like they might start with a lineup and then Walker goes out and throws 1 inning and Manaea comes in and then we see a lot of lefties get pinch hit for, would be my concern. So guys like Brandon Lau, Josh Lowe, Luke Raley, like be very careful of their pinch hit risk if they're in the initial lineup and then Manaea comes in to follow Walker. Could be a tough situation to figure out here today.
Yeah, I could see maybe like Curtis Mead at 2,200 if he cracks the lineup. Paredes, Siri, like these guys towards the like middle where like they might get like 2 at bats against Manaea, and likely won't get pinch hit for if they're in the lineup. I mean, Siri could potentially get pinch hit for by Riley or Rayleigh if he's not in there, but they're not gonna likely pinch hit a Rosarina or Paredes.
Derek asks who would replace Franco. Basabe is the guy who made his major league debut today, so I think it could possibly be him again.
Yep. Yeah. San Francisco side, any interest in the Giants against Glasnow?
No interest whatsoever in Giants.
That's where I'm at. All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here. Yeah. Under 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts. Who do you got?
I was debating between 2. There's 2 guys I love today. I'll take Grayson Rodriguez. Just a really talented pitcher. I already had some interest just because of the price and the pedigree. Finding some data to back that up while we were breaking it down has me even more intrigued.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. I am going to go Singer against
Yes,
Seattle.
sir. That was my other guy.
Over 8K to score under 15. Who's your bust today?
I'm going to go Yu Darvish. Baltimore is just a really solid offense. They're patient. They should work the pitch count a little bit. I'll probably play a little bit of Darvish, but I don't love this spot for him.
Dude, I have a bad gut feeling today against Scherzer. I don't really have like stats to back it up or anything like that. I just have a bad feeling about Scherzer today. So, yeah, bad feeling. I really feel like Ohtani's going to take him deep twice today. Over 4K to hit a home run, not in Coors. Who's going yard today?
Give me Pete Alonso. Good spot for him against Priester. You mentioned his hard contact rate to righties. Pete's been on a bit of a tear here. Hit like 5 home runs last week or something like that. So I think he keeps it going.
I'm going to go with the hottest hitter in baseball, Matt Olson.
Love it.
Under 4K to get 2 hits. Who's a cheap bet that you like today?
Give me Jeff McNeil. Again, I'm going to be attacking some Priester, even though this is a tough ballpark. Just don't think he's major league ready. Good spot for the Mets here today.
Yeah. If I was chasing a home run under 4K, a punt play today would be Lawrence Butler. We talked about him, big power, very raw. But to get 2 hits, give me Seth Brown at 3,500. I think Oakland is like sneaky because I think Mikolas gets some ownership today. I think Oakland, they could beat him. I think they could beat him.
I like that call.
Stack to score 6 or more runs.
I'm sticking with my Mets theme. I just like this spot for him today.
I like it. I'm trying not to go super chalky here. Yeah, I mean, give me Pittsburgh. Yeah, I don't think Pittsburgh's chalky. Like, I mean, I don't think it's a secret. Give me the Angels. I'm doubling down. Give me the Angels. Scherzer's getting hit today.
Wait, for real?
Yes, give me the Angels.
All right.
Scherzer is going to dominate now because I'm talking. He's like dude, I heard you on the morning grind today, and you talked so much smack, and I just had to go out and do your thing. So, it was so funny.
Incoming.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin was talking about how he didn't think anybody outside the playoff bubble could win this weekend, and like Michael McDowell like tweeted him and was like, "I'm gonna prove you wrong." Michael McDowell went out and won the race. Denny's like, "I took 2 losses today." That podcast will be interesting tomorrow. Can't wait to hear it. But that's gonna wrap it up here for Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday talking more baseball. I'm on MLB 6-pack today, so after I get my morning research in, if you want to check out that video and see who I'm liking going into the slate. Hope everyone has a fantastic day. Back tomorrow. Good luck. We'll see you then.